It's all good, my man. It's all good.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Bedroom Super Producer podcast. We are your hosts. My name is JT.
My name is BK.
And today we have someone who I very much look up to. Do you also look up to that person, BK?
If you mean Mr. Sonny Moore, aka Skrillex, I must say, yes, I do look up to Mr. Sonny Moore.
Yeah, I think we are going to have to be careful today because it might go longer than usual, as there's so much to talk about when you think of Sonny Moore's work. Ain't that right?
Indeed. This superstar DJ, born in Los Angeles in 1988, January 1988, I think started mostly with rock and roll, with his introduction to the Doors by his parents. Started, I think, his career in a hardcore band called From First to Last. He was a singer, actually. I don't know if most people know that he was actually a singer. And then decided 2007 to leave that band and to start his own band and to go solo. That didn't turn out the way I think he wanted it to. 2009, first Skrillex EP, My Name is Skrillex, free on MySpace. That's what started the whole EDM superstar DJ adventure for Skrillex.
So you don't count Gypsy Hook as a proper Skrillex effort then?
Personally, I think really it was My Name is Skrillex that, like, for me, that put him on the map. But I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, honestly, I had never heard of it before researching this episode, and it makes me feel less inferior when I hear that kind of material, because you see that the guy had an evolution. He wasn't always who we know as Skrillex. He was trying stuff out, going with the more pop approach, I would say, in the way he structures the song. He sings like proper verses and hooks over these beats. So I don't know. I kind of laughed also because it's so raw and so like you can tell that the guy is young. So it's I don't know. It gave me a very much different point of view on Skrillex.
I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about him on the podcast was that it shows us how, like you said, he started from like something very raw, and at the same time that he used the limited means to get his point across. It shows that he had an evolution and that it wasn't really polished from the start, but he still put it out there, which lots of people sometimes don't want to put it out there, stuff that's not really that polished, but at the same time it forces you to get better and better and to polish the work as you go, not necessarily in your basement without no one hearing it. And it's also a great subject for our podcast because it shows us that you can do great things with a limited amount of gear. At the beginning, I'm not sure he had everything that he has today to make music, and it's pretty much a laptop and a controller and probably a shitty sound card and a microphone, and him using what he knows singing and what he knows about composition to make that great first series of EPs.
I mean, when he came on the scene, for me, I didn't know anything about dubstep. So for me, it was really like the birth of a new genre of music, of electronic music. The sound design aspect also was kind of, there was always this idea that, did he use an analog synth or did he use a plugin to do that synth sound? But when you hear the first few things Skrillex put out, you couldn't stay indifferent to the sound design effort that was behind his music. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, he went like on another level, because usually when we would speak back in that period, that 2008, 2009 period, even before that, plugins and virtual synths were really associated a lot with, especially for beginners, with mostly like people were preset kiddies, as I like to call them. So there were so many presets and so many good ones developed by great players and great companies that people usually use the preset as they were and didn't necessarily push to understand how they were made, how they could be tailored to their own style. And I think he was one of those first DJ slash sound designer slash artist musician who kind of pushed the limit of really crafting something very specific, because at the same time, the advantages of being in the box, being in the computer and having all these plugins is that you can pretty much do anything you want with these sounds. So even if you lose a little bit of that tactile interface in the digital domain in the computer, there's no limit aside from your processor speed, or let's say the your track count. But in terms of programming stuff, I think in 2008, 2009, the computer were already pretty much like ahead. You didn't reach any particular limit just in terms of programming MIDI or virtual plugins or automation. That was pretty easy for the computers.
I mean, I think that there were already people making these crazy growls, probably with FM8 before Skrillex came on the scene. But and also, you know, looking back, I mean, I realized that his first records, he didn't sound design everything. Like you can literally find free massive and FM8 preset banks online, and there are some of those lead sounds that you'll find on Skrillex's records and Zomboys and these dubstep poster boys. But I think that what also brought Skrillex to another level is the fact that, probably as you've mentioned, coming from a band background and a rock background, he brought that musicality and that songwriting approach to something that wasn't really as structured from a pop perspective in dubstep.
It was coming straight from England, really influenced also a little bit by reggae, rhythm stuff, bass music, all that kind of like mixed into one. For me, it was mostly stuff that I would be hearing on BBC Radio 1 with the likes of Marianne Hobbs and those BBC Radio 1 DJs that would introduce us to that style of music that we couldn't hear on the radio here. I think Skrillex just found a way to really personalize that sound and to, like you said, bring it maybe into the more pop candy a little bit. So to sort of channel that younger energy that was maybe missing in the sound, that was maybe a little bit too aggressive, but you still had to keep that aggressiveness. But then he injected his own style, especially for me, his personal touch on the vocal chopping that he's like his signature sound pretty much. I think that's what made his whole sound, of taking all the different things that he was interested in and making it his own.
So to summarize, if you want to create your own sound for people out there listening to this podcast, just take one sound that you like, change the tempo, polish it up or dirty it up, and then have a unique approach to vocals, and you're good to go. Because that's basically what he did back in 2010.
Yeah, do something different. Give it a funky name like Mombaton or grimy Mombaton or something rhythm bass something, and then you're set.
So when he came on the scene, I remember we were having these conversations about the sound design, and you being very proficient both in analog and in the digital domain for sound design. What would you say sets him apart in terms of how he creates his synth sounds?
I think he's not afraid to go deeper than most people. Most people, they find something and at the surface that sounds good and they're going to use that. He's not afraid to just keep digging and keep digging and to be very unconventional also. I think that's what sets him apart. He's going to find this funky drum break and he's going to mix it with a little chop of a siren or something, and that's going to be the basis of the start of a song. And he's going to focus on more on the feeling of the song, or how you groove to it, how you dance to it, what kind of feeling it gives you to it, and then he's going to add on top of it, and then he's going to make it a little bit more in a specific form that's going to be I don't know, applied to Justin Bieber, or maybe the Jack Hughes stuff or whatever. But the raw energy, he tries to really find that special feeling. And sometimes most people, they get stuck in the technical aspect of doing maybe something that's a little bit too complicated, a little bit too, like, sometimes I feel that people make music with soft synths as if someone is going to be looking through the preset and he's going to give you a note on how the preset is well made. Well, we don't care how the preset is made. We just care at like the end result. If it's a little bleep that gives you that danceability with just an 808, well, it works. There's a lot of songs that are like that. If it's something a little bit more intricate, dead mouse-ish, with great chords, well, that works too. I think that's his strength, finding that killer loop. You could hear that loop like 60 times in a row and it's still it's gonna make you listen to the song.
That's a great answer, and I'll just parallel that with, when we were studying mixing, we had both purchased the mixing engineer's handbook, and we were redoing dozens and dozens of mixes for our first compilation album. And I think you will remember the same way, where we've basically figured out that mixing was all about the arrangement and the songwriting, and basically a song that is well written, that has parts that don't overlap in the same frequencies and all of that kind of stuff, will be very easy to mix and will sound great even without any mixing. And so, all of that being said, I think that sometimes I'll try to be as concise as possible because I have many different ideas I want to deliver in at one point. But when I was looking at the first few tutorials that popped on the scene on YouTube with Serum, I was expecting the growls to come out of the box, if you will, as they sound on a Skrillex record, And then I realized that there was all this post-processing. And I realized that the core sounds that came out of the plugin, whether it be, Serum or FM8, were kind of And so, to loop back to your point, the secret behind the sound of Skrillex to me is his musical approach and his approach to rhythm, way more than actually what kind of waveform he'll be using, or what kind of wavetable, or even what kind of distortion he'll follow up with to mix those huge throaty, bassy growls that he has,
It's always strange when, like you said earlier, when you listen to the raw sound, or what makes a cool sound, how stripped usually they are. And they're stripped for a reason, because you can't have something that's already full and then add this preset chain that's totally off the hook with OTT and overdrive and reverb and more overdrive and whatnot. If you're going to be doing that part of the sound with your effect chains, well, you need the basic of your sound to be super clean, super crisp, and just to provide like a good foundation for the type of sound that you're trying to get to, right? And that's exactly what he does.
And so, and also, I was looking at, I think he recorded a live lately on Instagram, and he was on the record saying himself, like, if you heard the sounds I work with when I'm writing, not when I'm mixing, not when I'm, polishing a track, but when I'm starting out, the sounds are kind of boring, like the post-processing and the mixing comes after, but I first need to figure out if the core idea is interesting. And so what I guess what I was trying to say a few seconds ago, is that more often than not in music, the answer doesn't lie in the actual process of whether it be mixing or sound designing, but it always comes down to sound musical ideas.
When you realize that it's all about the way you combine sounds, and the way you combine sounds starts at conception, when you're writing the song, when you're choosing the instrument, when you're recording the instrument, and everything starts there. And the mixing, you can't, it's always more difficult to mix something that there's too many elements in the same spot, and especially even more difficult if all these same elements that play at the same time interact together in the same frequency range, right? So that's
Yeah.
why composing and arranging is so important, and makes the mixer engineer's life way easier if it's well done. You're not fighting frequencies. You don't have to dip things that are not supposed to be together the same spot. You don't have four 808s sounding at the same time, the same note, and you're trying to hear them separately. I think that's what he does very well. And the fact that he was in a band before, and that his education was not just electronic music, his education was great records from the 70s, from the 60s, the Doors and all, that he was exposed to that. I think that helped him later to be able to like transcribe that emotion, that aggressiveness, the dubstep feel, that energy from that special type of music, but still do it in a very musical way.
I absolutely agree, and I'll make another point regarding his understanding of colors and textures. When you listen to some of those old school drops, let's say on Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, you can definitely hear that in opposition to other DJ or dubstep artists of the time, he wasn't always staying in the same frequencies. He had these contrasts in colors and in texture within those little chops and snippets of sounds that he collaged together to put these drops together. And I think that's one of the reasons why he stood out. Like, a lot of the dubstep, as you said, was very raw, and they pretty much stayed around the idea of the wobble bass. Whereas him, he had all of these screeches and then these very plucky, metallic sounds, coupled with the growls and everything. And I think that it gave more colors and textures to the modern dubstep sound.
Yeah, totally right. And I think to add to what you're saying, he also uses silence very well. In all his tracks, there's always these little like cutouts in the tracks. And that's perfect for human beings, because you don't want to have a track that's always ramping 100%, 100, always sound, always sound, always sound. And for him, the way to capitalize on that energy, and to keep pushing you ahead, like through the song, and to make you want to hear more and more, he had these little cutouts of like silence at like every like one or two bars or whatnot, just to give you that little breathing room, where either you're gonna ask yourself what's coming, or either you're gonna tell yourself, oh, there's this thing coming, and it drops there and it stops there, and there's like a silence here, and that's exciting in music, having these little drops here and there and not knowing what's gonna happen. It keeps things very fluid and very dynamic, and he's very good at doing that.
I agree. I think that alone separates, the YouTube up and comers versus the people who release EPs and albums and really make a name for themselves. When you hear kids doing these dubstep drops on YouTube, usually they won't leave enough silence for the drums and the growls to really really get all up in the face of their listeners. And so, if we move a little bit further in the future, I think that for me, when Bangarang was released, is when really we stepped away from the raw aspect of the first projects, and he really got into his full, comfortable, almost perfect sounding self, where the drums were incredibly hard hitting. The sound design was still there, and then the production value of the songs was really on another level.
Bangarang EP is like, I think it's one of my favorite EPs of him. Like, even if the Scary Monsters was more of his introduction, and it's fun to see that energy, that youthful energy. But like that 2011 project, the Bangarang EP, really, that's, I think, what put him on a more commercial, mainstream, and people started to listen more. I think that's the big album. And also, like you said, I think he learned a lot from his first EP, and he just stepped it up. Like you said, the production value was better. The composition also value was better. He also started to collaborate more with different artists around him to bring his the level of the songs to another level. He worked with Ellie Goulding, he worked with Syrah, he worked with 12 Planet, Killer Noise. There's a track that I love a lot, The Devil's Den, with Wolfgang Gardner, who was also a great DJ. Um, that the Breaking a Sweat track that he did with the two remaining members from The Doors, which is totally awesome. I suggest people go see that YouTube video. It's incredible to see how they wrote it together, and how humble he was when he met them, and how it was pretty much a dream for him to work with the Doors. So, like you said, the production value just stepped up a notch, and then with touring and everything, I think that's one of the EPs that, like, really people started paying attention, that he was able to do it over and over, and that he had the work ethic, and it wasn't just a 2 or 3 EP and a MySpace like one-time deal, that he was able to work with people and to, like, bring his sound to the next level and to reinvent himself.
I remember when that came out, I started to Google how to get drums like Skrillex. And that really, really opened up a brand new world in sound and drum design for me. When he
The
actually
vengeance
said,
stuff.
yeah, well, the vengeance stuff, but he especially for the snares, he brought something different to the game, where he would get the attack and transients from one sound, and then get the body from like a 909 snare, and then layer that with like super high passed either claps or china cymbals. And I was like, wow, like the guy got like 3 4 sounds going on in these snares. No wonder they sound that loud and punchy. And I think, again, we're talking about like a 26-year-old kid just having fun on a laptop with a few plugins, and he already knew all these tricks. So I was really amazed at that.
He showed that he was able to take it to the next level, and the next level was also like proving that it's not just about samples, it's not just about sample packs, it's not just about presets or plugins, it's also how you use them. Like I said at the beginning, I think he's like a perfect candidate for our podcast, because he shows that, yeah, just with a couple of samples and a laptop and the willingness to be creative, you can accomplish pretty much anything.
And he was certainly also one of those first viral artists, because prior to getting signed to Dead Mouse's Mousetrap, it was all like MySpace.
Yeah.
I remember going on his MySpace page when he wasn't a star, but you could see like the way off the charts numbers in terms of friends and plays on his little music player, and you were like, who is that guy?
Who is that guy? Yeah,
Like,
right.
what is that music? How do you even call that? Like, I don't know. It was so new. Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
Being there when it all happened the first time around was something.
True. It's fun to go back in time like that, and to see where these guys are today, and to see how it started, and to be able to remember actually that, like, then you used to go to their MySpace, and they weren't that popular, and these albums weren't even out yet, and they kept on working and kept on grinding, and they're even better today.
So great sound. Great songwriting, great sound design, great drum design, an understanding of mixing, a great knowledge of melodies and chords and scales. What else do you need to be Sonny Moore or Skrillex?
Probably they, like his team and himself, they also have a great vision for the tours that they're doing. The way they connect different acts, I think, is very interesting. The fact that we got into Skrillex, we got into the Zed also. We got into Porter Robinson, all these guys. So it's kind of a family of DJs. That's what's also pretty cool about his sound. It's not just him. It's also the fact that you can discover other types of sound. He's also not afraid to promote other artists that are in the same lane as him, and the fact that he created his own label, Ausla, just for that's a label that's very artist driven, say, for that type of bass slash house music. And today we're talking a lot about subscription services and Apple this and Apple that and Netflix and whatnot. I think Ausla is one of those labels that they used just that when it was started in 2010, 2011. That's how they distribute. They have subscription and membership, and you get all the artists that release on that label. You get access to all their music, which is pretty cool. So add that marketing aspect and the way to promote himself, the way they tour, the way the visuals. We were talking about visuals on the Daft Punk podcast. We were talking about visuals on the Eamon Tobin podcast last week. And I think he's also one of those artists who wants the visual to be right up there with the famous the mothership that he created for his 2014 2015 tour, I think. Just those great visuals also combine that with that great marketing that they're doing, and that's pretty much the formula for him.
Yeah, I think you said it. The branding aspect is also very strong with Skrillex. I remember the first logo he had, which was like a 3D render of the letters, but with all of the letters broken and stuff. I think that was on the My Name is Skrillex EP cover. But ever since,
always keeping with the those three like Wolverine scratches. That's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, exactly. It stayed all the way through, and he pushed it to a whole new level. I remember when we went to his live show in Montreal. I personally knew of Bangarang and Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites, but that was pretty much it. Like, I knew he was awesome, but I didn't listen to all of that, all that much. And the visual, like the computer generated graphics, like you're literally like going down a dark tunnel aboard the spaceship. And I was like, wow, I really never thought you could have that great of an experience at a DJ set. You know what I mean?
That's the level that these new DJs have taken upon themselves to bring to the public. Because if you think about it, just playing music in front of a crowd is sort of boring. But if you bring those visual aspects and that spaceship and those big screens and those lights that are triggered at the same time, with the same timing as the songs, with the explosions and everything, well, that's a show. That's a real DJ concert.
And especially with Skrillex, I guess he even has this special DJ ear, because I remember seeing a bunch of other guys that had kind of the same format, but there really is no pacing like a live Skrillex DJ set. You know what I mean?
He has this talent of the way he mixes is not the same as like people do. He has these switches, and like I said, he makes room a lot for the silences. Also plays a lot with dynamics. The way he switches between the songs, it's not always the same tempos. Sometimes he introduces an idea or a melody from another song into the old song at a different tempo. So he has a pretty a different way than just mixing like seamlessly like most DJs. Like because usually people mix in a way so that you don't even know that the song has switched. And for him, it's a bit different. It's almost sometimes aggressive, and he's forcing you to understand that there's another switch coming, and sometimes it's more subtle, and sometimes it's more in your face, and sometimes it's what you want to hear. And when you go see a show of Skrillex, that's what you want to see. You want to see how he does those different changes.
Fun fact that had never occurred to me prior to researching this episode, but he only has one full-length album. That's another thing that's absolutely mind-blowing when you think of his success.
He's more into records in terms of singles. That's what I realized about him. He's very about being very prolific, but smaller bodies of work. He's not going to work like 2 years or 3 years on the same 8 songs, but he's going to have maybe an EP every year of 5 or 6 songs, a couple of remixes of his own songs by different artists from his label or whatever, or different projects. Let's say the project with Boys Noise or with Diplo. So he's very prolific in terms of getting tracks out. So I think that's his vision, more in terms of tracks slash records. Records in the sense of in the old days, a record was like 2 tracks on a side and then 2 remixes on the other side, on the B side, right? I think that's more his approach, less of having an album, full length album every year, touring, and then another one, and then touring. And so he's more about, I think, singles and collaborations.
I guess his crazy touring schedule also has something to do with that.
Yeah, but he still manages to be very prolific and compose all kinds of stuff in his hotel rooms and on the bus and everything. He's participated in a lot of tracks, and even more recently he's more in the studios now. But now he's racking up the successes more as a producer. Before it was mostly remixes and stuff that he did with his friends and his DJ friends and the Boys Noise and whatnot. But now his name is appearing in a lot of producers' credit. I don't know. He produced the most famous was like he produced Justin Bieber's for like a couple of tracks on his latest album. He even produced, I think, Korn at some point. I heard something Korn. Even Lady Gaga or something. I heard something with Lady Gaga. Mariah Carey, I think he did one song. So not bad for an EDM slash emo kid from LA.
I mean, yeah, it's a great segue to get in to fast forward into his kind of shift that happened around like 2014, when he did actually start to work with Diplo and then Justin Bieber and then all of these more established pop artists. And another testament to his musical genius is the fact that he just started to create this brand new type of tropical house, but it's not really tropical house. Like people talked about it like it was tropical house back then, but it was really something completely unique. You know what I mean? Especially the what do you mean stuff. These 2 or 3 joints that he did on Justin Bieber, and then the one that they had on their album on Where Are You Now? Well, which is the title of the song also, Where Are You Now?
But they did create sort of a new type, kind of a little bit of a dumbing down of that EDM energy, that dubstep energy, and to bring it even more towards the masses, to get a little bit more of that vocal hook, and that we can maybe play that music at the Grammys if we need to vibe, It's interesting. But like you said, like that tropical stuff. Who was doing that before Jack U and stuff like that?
I mean, I wasn't savvy enough with all of the different EDM subgenres. Did Kygo come out with a few songs before that? With like
Perhaps. Yeah.
either like plucks or flutes during the
Yeah.
drop.
Uh,
Um, but I mean, the combination of like tribal, almost African drums
yeah. Yeah.
with the tropical aesthetics of the plucks and the flutes, and then this new school way of chopping the vocals also. Not so much a vocal chop anymore, but literally chopping like the hook was for me what set them apart. And I mean, I always find it very, very refreshing when an artist literally reinvents his sound and actually is also able to take it to a whole new level. And for him, I think that he got so wildly successful. That's why he had this like internet beef with Deadmau5, because I think he would never admit to it, but I think he was kind of a little bit jealous of
well,
like,
they became.
I made you, I signed you, and
Yeah.
now you're leagues above me in terms of commercial financial success.
I must admit, I didn't really pay that much attention to the whole feud, aside from the fact that we know Dead Mouse will be Dead Mouse, and he's very opinionated about different things. And when he hates something, even if it's the rawness, the raw feelings that he has at the moment, and especially today with the social media stuff, he's gonna say it right away. I don't know. I think he thought it was just that he didn't like the music, but you have to admit that just because you don't like it, the fact that it sold so much and that people connected to that type of music and the Jack U stuff and the Justin Bieber stuff, well, at the end of the day, even if you take a look at a guy like Diplo, they're out there to be. They just want to make great music. You're not forcing yourself to always stay in a particular lane or to be just doing this particular style. At the end of the day, you're exploring sound, you're exploring music. You want to work with different people. You want to make great songs, and you want to share these great songs. So it's a little bit sometimes it's strange when you see people hating so much on a certain particular style when you're like, well, I can like heavy metal and I can also like classical music. There's nothing wrong with that. So why not a Justin Bieber single and I can also like Deadmau5.
Well, thinking about it, I think that Deadmau5's gripe was more with the fact that they had this brilliant, dominating on the radio sound, and they basically just gave it away to a guy like Justin Bieber. And he thought that they gave it too easy to a guy like Justin Bieber, basically. I think that's what his frustration came from.
No, maybe.
But with that being said, I mean, yeah, so he did that, joining forces with another guy that we will certainly evaluate, analyze, and appreciate in another episode, Diplo.
Of course. There's a perfect example of bedroom super producerness.
Absolutely. And then we go from that, and as you said, he started to like wear the hat more of the producer, and that's where some of his best work came about.
Yeah.
You have any songs in mind?
My favorite is Purple Lamborghini with Rick Ross. That's my favorite.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Right? That's what you wanted to hear.
Yeah, because I mean, it was his first again, and we see this happening with the first he does it with dubstep, then he does it with tropical-ish EDM something, and then his first foray into proper trap music, and boom, he drops one of the most classic Rick Ross songs of all times, in my humble opinion.
Once again, a great use of sounds and also silence. The little breaks exactly at that moment. It forces you to groove in a certain way, to dance in a certain way, to step in a certain way. And for me, it's a stepping song.
Very true. And if you look at Rick Ross's most successful songs or singles, they kind of have that sound, um, but then he literally puts his own little secret sauce on there, and it basically becomes Rick Ross on steroids. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. He even says it in the song. When he gets down with Skrillex, that it becomes something even more raw, even more impressive. Yeah, he has that uncanny ability to apply his secret sauce, his own sound, and to apply it to the project or to the artist that he wants to promote or to make a song with, kind of like he did with Justin Bieber. And another perfect example for that would be the sound design that he did for with Steve Jablonsky for the Transformer movie. It's exactly the same thing. You hear the sound, you hear the screeches at some places in the fight. I think it's Age of Extinction, I think the one. It sounds like Skrillex, but it's not a dubstep song. It's just like little sound design-ish elements that he did. And I'm very impressed by the fact that he's able to be a chameleon and to adapt his style to all these different projects that he does. And
Yeah, and you even got a guy like Steve Jablonsky saying, well, first of all, that he's a big Skrillex fan,
exactly.
but also that his sound design was so good that they both used it as sound effects in the movie and as synthesizer sounds within the score itself.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
cool.
that I didn't know. At first, I thought they would use him as a sound designer for the movie, but Steve Jablonsky said in an interview that he actually used some of his sounds in the score. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
It shows you that he understands like how sound needs to behave in scoring, like, and using these sounds as sound effects in a movie. And then he also understands how to make them more musical, I guess, to be usable in a film score setting.
How to be able to make them fit in like a sampler setting or an instrument setting or like a contact sampler setting. It's not always easy. Sometimes it's easy to grab sounds from everywhere but to be able to work with them or to tweak them in a certain way, to know the limits of the ranges in terms of pitch, in terms of tuning, it's not always it's not as easy as people think it is.
Certainly not. And honestly, if I was able to go spend a week in Steve Jablonsky's studio and learn from him and have him say in interviews that he's a fan of me, I would be done with this thing.
Yeah.
I'd be okay. my life would be complete.
Yeah, nice.
So what I mean, I was trying to find new interviews, and it seems like he's been taking a step back. Not a step back, but I guess he's concentrating more on the studio work these days. Do you have that feeling? Like he released the song with Pooh Bear, and then nothing really big. Like there's a bunch of like remixes, but what has caught your ear lately from Mr. Moore?
He did something with Kanye, right? I think the latest stuff he did this year,
which is pretty good. Well, I liked it.
It's okay, I think. I like the stuff he did with Boys Noise, the Midnight Hour with Boys Noise. That's pretty cool.
Is that the dog? What's the dog blood or something?
Yeah, but I'm not sure it's Dog Blood. I'm not sure if it's
another one.
It's always difficult to know. Is it for the Dog Blood or is it just like Boys Noise? And he's very into like singles. That's what I noticed. He likes to put his best work towards one thing, do the best, and move to something else. One thing, do the best, and move to something else. So I think it tailors perfectly to what he's doing right now, because I don't think he's producing like entire albums for artists. People want his like serial magic / sound, how he does sound in the studio, but he does it maybe on 2 or 3 tracks and that's it. I don't think he produces a complete album usually with I think the closest he came to that was with the Beebs.
Indeed, they did more songs together than, well, I mean, now maybe Ty Dolla $ign, but they don't have kind of a project, like a project that they do together. It's just a bunch of different collabs that they do.
And at the same time, it's kind of normal, because if you look at the industry today,
well, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's no point.
It's less and less in terms of albums. Like, I think in the industry now, they're more interested in having, say, one song go viral, or like singles and stuff. I think it's even because before it was single driven, but you were forced to buy the 12 other crappy track on the CD for $20, and now you can just get that single or from whatever streaming service you're getting, or whatever, iTunes or whatnot, you know?
Yeah, well, there's no point in, there's no box anymore. Like, you can't buy a cassette or a CD. So, well, I mean, you can, but people don't really do that anymore. So there's no point in putting together 14 tracks, 8 of which are and then you have 4 great singles.
Yeah.
You know, he's just put out the 4 great singles and that's it. So I guess he's a product of his time also.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm trying to get at here is that, can he please like drop a proper like EP so we can just keep going, follow in his footsteps, appreciate his genius.
It should come soon.
I mean,
it should come soon. I'm sure he's preparing stuff that we're not aware of.
Because I mean, I like the Owsla stuff, like all of the artists that he pushes. I like the aesthetics of the label. I liked his latest stuff, you know, like I said, the Pooh Bear song. Would you ever? What's the? I still, when I either lift weights or do push-ups or something like that, listen to that Humble remix he made.
Oh yeah, the Kendrick Lamar. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's also on my in my top 10.
Oh yeah, that's perfectly mixed, perfect sound design, and then the way he approaches the vocal is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a great song. But yeah, I mean, when you look at a guy like that, it's just so much to learn in terms of putting a complete package together. If you're a budding artist or producer right now, and you tell yourself, once I get that big paycheck, I'll invest in my studio, this and that. Well, you have living proof right there that one... Okay, so here's another thing I learned from Skrillex in his latest live that he did on Instagram. The only 2 plugins he would take with him on a desert island, try to guess what they are. And by the way, it'll tell you a whole lot about his approach and the character of the guy.
EQ and compression.
Ooh, wow. That's either a very lucky guess or you knew the answer.
No, I just guessed. Well, that's what I would take.
Yeah, well, okay, so you were really, really, really close, but it's Pro Q3 by FabFilter.
EQ.
And Pro L
by
FabFilter
limiter
also.
Yeah. Well, a limiter technically is a compressor.
So he wouldn't even need, FM8 or Massive or Serum or anything like that. So I found that quite interesting because indeed, and I mean, me personally, I feel the same way. Like for me, just something to squash the dynamics and something to craft the colors and the frequencies is really like 80 to 90% of my creative process, really. Once I got the basic ideas down, that's where my quote-unquote magic happens also. So I was really pleased with that answer. I felt a little less alone in this world.
Exactly.
But yeah, all of that to say that we have no excuse. You don't need a fancy $10,000 synthesizer. You don't need a brand new iMac. You don't need any of that.
You don't
to create.
You don't need a Universal Audio sound card.
You don't need any of their plugins.
Nothing. You don't need a Moog. Yeah. You don't need nothing. A laptop and a pair of headphones. There you go.
And a great understanding of music history.
Oh yeah, so that you need.
Music theory.
So you're saying that you need knowledge. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Well, that's what I guess we are learning right now from Mr. Sonny Moore, isn't it?
A laptop and some knowledge and a great ear.
I feel like this podcast was paid for by Ty Lopez right now.
There you go.
All right. So, do you want to impart the closing argument on this great episode that we just had, BK?
Well, sure. I'm going to invite everyone to search for Skrillex in the YouTube or the web. Some great videos of his touring when he went to South America. The documentary that he made on how he built the spaceship, the mothership for his show. That's pretty interesting. And yeah, go get inspired and get some ideas, and then get back in your studio and make those great sounds. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a great week, guys.
Have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. Remember to subscribe if you like what you hear. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Also, if you want to support us, head on to delicatebeats.com. You can find our serum packs, our contact instruments, and also plenty of freebies if you subscribe to the newsletter. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and once again, keep making that awesome music.